Hello,
Christopher,
how you doing?
good mate. How are you?
Good. Are you in Australia? Are you?
I'm in South America at the moment, in
Oh,
Peru.
okay. Peru. Oh, nice.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So you're a
Whereabouts are
digital
you?
nomad?
I am, well, I'm not much of a nomad, but I've been working online for.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. I've got a really fantastic guest for you today, John Wood, and he's got an online business. He's able to thrive, and he's living in Peru for the last 2 years. He's got a fantastic message around just self development, self improvement. He talks about burn your self help books, fire your life coach, ditch the meditation apps, which I'm really quite interested to hear about, and he's got a fantastic view on life, which I reason why I brought him on. So, John, welcome.
Thank you, Christopher. It's good to be here, man.
Yeah. So kind of set the stage. You have a really I was a digital nomad in 2016, learned from all these online entrepreneurs. They're building like, 7-figure businesses. They were ditching their 9 to 5, they didn't have any bosses or all this stuff. So talk about your story, your journey, and I'm excited to dive right into the conversation.
Cool. Well, I mean, I've been in this game working online for 12, I think 2011, so 12, 13 years now. Originally from Sydney, Australia, and had a job at the time that I did not. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't what I wanted to be doing. So I wasted a lot of time online while I was at this office, and somehow found a job listing, I suppose, for an internship doing marketing at some beach resorts in the Philippines. So I ended up moving to the Philippines for a year and staying at this couple different resorts, not getting paid money, but they basically gave me food and a room in exchange for me doing some marketing for them a couple days a week. And that was where it started. And that was, like I said, that was 2011. And after that, went to Thailand, spent 6, 7 years in Thailand, bounced around to a bunch of other places, 20, 25 countries. I don't know at this point. Now I'm in Peru,
Yeah.
in South America, building a business while also doing, I don't know if you're into psychedelics, but there's a big, ayahuasca, San Pedro, mushroom, psilocybin, all these things are starting to come into the mainstream. So, yeah, I've used my business, I guess, to come over to South America and explore a bit of that while I'm, balancing that with business as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's been amazing.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting because you're actually living I think Tim Ferriss was talking about ayahuasca, and he's kind of like the first like kind of person that talked about digital nomadship. Um and one thing that I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs about is basically a lot of them are into self-development, they've got life coaches, they've got their morning routine, cold shower, meditation apps, all of that. But you actually are anti all of that, and yet you're still able to accomplish what they have. So kind of talk about this,
Mm.
kind of it sounds like just kind of more minimalism and basically get to the core of things. So talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've done all that stuff. I meditated 20 minutes a day for almost 10 years. I don't really do it anymore, but, gratitude lists, journaling, all the self-help books, not all, there's too many to read, but like I've done all the shit that most people talk about, bro, like ice bars, breath work, affirmations, like all the stuff that gets recommended. And there's good in all of it. But I think for a long time, I felt like I was searching for something. I didn't even really know what it was. I was just searching for something was missing. And I couldn't put my finger on what exactly that was. Life was pretty good at the time. I made good money. I lived in Thailand. I had a great girlfriend and just a fantastic lifestyle, a lifestyle that most people dream of. And yet something was like, I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. Something's not right. And looking back, I think I was probably, decently fairly anxious. I wouldn't have recognized that at the time because I think I was quite disconnected from what was happening in my body. Um,
Mm.
and so yeah, so I was trying all these different things, trying self-help courses, life coaching. I'd seen different therapists, and spiritual books, psychedelics, all of it. And like I said, there is good in all of it. But then I think it was 2020, I spoke to a friend. She said she'd just gotten off the phone just started doing sessions with what's called a somatic therapist. Now, somatic just refers to the body instead of, psyche, somatic is the physical unit that we have. And so she'd seen like a somatic therapist, someone who helps you work with the body instead of talking about what happened and say in the past or talking about why you're frustrated, why you're depressed, why you're anxious. It's about, okay, let's move into the body and start to feel what's really happening. And the way she described her session, something sparked in me. I'm like, that I need that. I don't know what it was, but I want to do that. And so I went to Google and searched for, I think it was somatic experiencing. That's one of the official. There's different modalities, different schools of thought in the somatic world. So I looked up somatic experiencing plus I'll verse TRE, which is a thing where you can basically activate the shaking mechanism in the body to release stress. And I found this fantastic article which just explained why the somatic approach or the somatic experiencing specifically is far more, I want to say, just better than TRE and a lot of other things that people use to force stress and things out of the nervous system. So then went down this big rabbit hole with that. And I think within 1 or 2 weeks, I'm like, man, this has given me already everything I wanted to get from all the other shit I was doing. And it gave it to me, in 1 or 2 weeks. That's not to say it was finished then, but it was like, it only took a week or two where I'm like, oh, this is it. This is just the thing I want to go all in on in terms of being happy and grounded and healthy and whole and fulfilled and all those things. And so that was 2020. And it has been the most magical journey. And it's given me so much in terms of just everything. But the whole idea is basically learn to work with your nervous system. The nervous system is at the core of everything we're doing. The mind is really just a reflection, we might say, of the nervous system and stress response. So if we learn to work with the nervous system and the stress response, we can get it to relax a lot more, which is going to get rid of a lot of the negative thoughts, allows us to sleep better. We digest food better. We have more energy. We start to feel what our path is in life. Instead of having to journal and think and do everything intellectually, we can start to feel for our path. And so, it's just been the most amazing, incredible journey. And the weird thing is very few people know about it. Like to me, it's not a little bit better than meditation. It's like if meditation was like a Honda Civic or a cheap little car, to use one example, this way of working with the nervous system to me is like a Ferrari. Or meditation and all the self-help things that most people do to me feels like a standard definition TV, and the nervous system approach is to me more like a ultra high definition TV, where it's the same basic idea of working with the mind and the body and the soul, but it's just better. I don't know how else to put it. It's so much better. It's changed my life. It's changed the lives of people I know. And and then now I eventually was like, I got to tell people about this because most people have never heard of it. So that's why I started Rageheart, and then that's how we ended up here today.
Yeah. And and I love this idea of getting into the body, and we'll talk about your philosophy behind Rageheart, which is interesting. And would the way you were describing it, is this similar to basically intuition, like just because like when I was like in 2008, when I was contemplating just kind of just like I would just say F the system, and I'm sick of this this whole Western way of thinking. And then basically I didn't do any of that. I just kind of went into my intuition. Is that the same thing or no?
Well, that's part of it, right? So it's not like one technique, right? So one aspect of getting into the body is learning to follow the impulse. I don't usually use the word intuition, but we think about going to the bathroom. It's not a thought that, I mean, can express as a thought, but really it's a feeling in our lower abdomen that tells us it's time to go to the bathroom. And so we can start to feel in our body, and our body will start to speak to us in terms of what to do, like food and sleeping and bathroom breaks. And then also what's our purpose, but that's only that's an important piece, but really, I guess the core of it, of Rageheart, and what I'm teaching people now is understanding how the nervous system works, how it moves into, we call it sympathetic or fight or flight, how it starts to get activated, and what deactivates it. Because most people are living in this, we call it sympathetic activation, right? They're constantly in on mode. They go, 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 do. And, we can take some deep breaths. We can do different things like that, meditate. But there's some very, as an example, there's lots of different things you can do with it. Lots of things I teach people. But one example is often when we're feeling stressed, the problem is that we just don't feel safe. Right? It's not that we're thinking too much. It's not that so-and-so said this thing or whatever it is that happened. It's that we don't feel safe. At the very core, the fundamental level, it's an issue of safety. No one's talking about this, and no one tells you this stuff for some reason. And so, okay, if I feel unsafe, if I'm feeling stressed and I'm not hungry and I'm snapping at my kids, and I can't sleep. How do I change that, right? I can do like a sleep meditation, but really, again, the core is I don't feel safe. So in
Yeah.
the nervous system, approach, I'm not the only one. I didn't discover this stuff. I'm just passing it on or sharing it. We can start to look where you say to people, orient to the safety in the environment, actually look around and see if it's safe. And this is the same thing. If you have cats or dogs, animals, because there's a sound, humans do it too. We're animals as well. There's a loud sound. We look towards the sound. We orient towards the threat.
Yeah.
It's like an instinctual, unconscious method of, is it a threat? Oh, it's not a threat. Okay, I can relax. And so sometimes when we've been spending a lifetime of stress, a lifetime of go and go and go,
Uh,
we don't do this as much as we should, or as much as would help us. So that's just one example. There's so many different things, ways of getting people into the body, ways of helping the system come out of that sympathetic activation and into relaxation. That's really a starting point, is safety, teaching people how to orient and
yeah.
see, is it actually safe here right now? And as
Yeah.
I look around or do that, how does that change how I feel?
Yeah. Yeah, and really, it's really interesting the way you describe it, and we'll talk about some of the resources later on how you came about this. And so the next question is, so for example, like a lot of people, they have PTSD, or they get triggered. It's a lot of different things, and basically when they get triggered, they go into this fight or flight, or this negative, and they run away. And so in this scenario, how would Rageheart help? Like what, like I know you say don't take a deep breath, but you talk about, feeling into the body with eyes wide open. How would somebody address these triggers with your system?
I mean, it depends on it's like, how long do you have? How long can we talk for? But
Yeah.
I mean, at a basic level, it's that whether the trigger is right here, someone just yelled at me, right? Or there's a barking dog, something's like the threat is happening right now,
Mm,
or it happened 10 years ago or 30 years ago, whatever like happened. It's
yeah.
almost like, as far as the nervous system is concerned, it's the same thing. It's happening right now. Like the feeling, the somatic, the experience of what's coming up it's as if it's happening right now.
Uh-huh.
So the tools are the same, right? So often when people go through severe stress, whether it's literally happening right now or it happened in the past, there's a tendency to disconnect, right?
Oh,
And I
oh,
think as Westerners, we're very good at this because we've spent a lifetime in our heads. Is we think we're feeling, well, I'm so angry, and it's like, well, that's a thought. That's like a intellectual or a conceptualization of a feeling. I'm angry. I'm so furious with you. But what does it feel like? Right? What does anger actually feel like in the body? What does
uh-huh.
fear feel like? What does shame feel like? We say, oh, I'm so ashamed. I'm so embarrassed. I feel like an imposter. These are all stories. They're all words. Words aren't feelings. We can't literally feel a word. And so when it comes to working with these kinds of things, it's helping people to start to feel, not to be like, well, I'm angry or I'm really scared or I'm really anxious, but to start to make contact with, okay, if I'm feeling, say, anxious, there might be a sense of butterflies, or I might say like a sense of movement down in my stomach area. I might
Mm,
find I have no appetite. If I gave it a temperature, I might say it feels a bit cold, right? And so
uh-huh.
now I'm starting to make contact with the raw sensation, the sensory experience of the feeling, not my verbal or description of the experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so that's why one of the schools that teaches this, somatic experiencing, that's the idea, experiencing the somatic, the physical expression of these things. And that's why it's about getting people into the body, because if we're not in the body, which means feeling what's happening in the body,
Uh-huh.
we can't actually experience it, and then it can't release, right? So if someone's got PTSD or there's a trigger, it's learning to, okay, that trigger, okay, that's interesting, that happened. What am I feeling in my body right now? Are my shoulders like kind of going up a little bit? Is my heart starting, like the chest starting to close? How does my sort of butthole or butt feel? Am I starting to clench that a little bit? Are you starting to learn to relax these parts?
Yeah.
you know and sometimes it can be like it's part of it's experiencing the feeling. Sometimes feelings just want to be felt,
Yeah.
but sometimes there's also like feelings want to be expressed. So we think about fight or flight. Flight would be running away, fight would be attacking and destroying. And so what does that look like? Well, I mean, running away is pretty obvious. You could just run on the spot when you're feeling it. The alternative is to, well, for fighting, there's techniques where it's like learning to growl. learning to getting a towel and trying to rip it up, rip it in half, learning to snarl the way you watch dogs and cats when they're pissed off,
Yeah.
like they don't screw around. They're gonna like they're gonna like raise their upper lip, their eyes are gonna narrow. Like it's a very physical. It's not just words. The dog doesn't come in and be like, "Hey, I'm so angry you ate some of my food." He just like it's a primal. And so there's an element of that too, like learning, helping people get into that mode rather than, again, in our Western world, we're so good at being up here. And so it's about getting people down here.
Uh, yeah, very interesting. And then another question, I have so many questions. I know we have we're limited in time, and so one thing is this idea of, you talk about sympathetic, which is that fight, and then the parasympathetic is rest. And then so a lot of Westerners, they just say like the breath is where you start, but you actually say you say I'm not sure if you say screw that, but you talk about feeling into the body with the eyes. Is this just another way of connecting with the body, like breathing, and then just like what you described, feeling into the body, and like labeling in terms of sensations and feelings as opposed to words is what I'm getting out of this.
Yeah. I mean, like the idea of labeling, like saying, well, what temperature is this? If this feeling had a temperature, what, like, would it be cold or hot or warm or something else? Is it changing? Like the point of it doesn't mean you always have to ask those questions. The point is the questions are a way to, like, an entry point, a doorway into directly experiencing it. Because often, I mean, I was like this when I first got in this. Someone said, "What are you feeling?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
You ask most people, I think a lot of men especially, "What are you feeling right now?" They're like, "I don't, what do you mean?"
Yeah.
Like they got no idea so this is a way for people to learn to feel. Um, you mentioned, and there's all kinds of ways, it's like, what color is it? What temperature is it? If it had an image associated with it, like when I've noticed like a shame, sometimes I see like a swamp, like it's an image I see, like it's just like icky, like a swamp feeling to it.
Yeah.
Um, is it moving around? Is it sharp in like one point? Is it diffuse? Is it dynamic and moving? And does it stay in one spot? So these are all questions to get people to actually feel rather than think about it. And as for the eyes open, I know for me, and I tend to think this is true for a lot of people, that I've done a lot of meditation. So with my eyes shut, it's like I'm there and I can be very present, but often I think what's happening is I'm sort of floating off a little bit. I don't know how, it's not like I'm completely still there, but I'm a bit like floaty, like I'm halfway asleep.
Yeah.
I'm not asleep, but I'm like not fully paying attention. It's like I would say that I'm actually disconnected from my body. And
Uh-huh.
with my eyes shut, it's a bit easy to do that.
Uh-huh.
I think this is one of the dangers of meditation.
Yeah.
Whereas when I have my eyes open, I'd love to see some science on this. I don't know if anyone's actually studied this yet, but the explanation that I have heard is that when our eyes are open, we're activating the ventral vagal. So there's a nerve that runs down, the vagus nerve
Yeah.
that runs down the front, goes into our chest, and it's part of our social engagement system. So it's part of this parasympathetic system.
Yeah.
Our eyes open is going to activate that more, which is then going to keep us in basically what we'd say is like a good nervous system zone for feeling. So that then when it comes to feeling what's going on, say in the body, can I do it while looking around? Can I look at that tree and also feel that funny feeling in my stomach? Or can I look at the tree and also feel the ground? And this balancing both together is there's a lot of amazing stuff that happens with that. And that's when it really integrates. One problem with meditation is that we can meditate and we can even get pretty far with it and develop our awareness to a very high degree with our eyes shut.
Yeah.
But then we open our eyes and it's like that internal awareness isn't connected or integrated with the external.
Yeah.
And again, I'd love to see some science on this. I don't know if anyone's studying it yet, but like I've seen this in people who meditate a lot. Maybe they're great at meditating, but they're also a bit spacey. I don't know how else to put it. They're a bit spacey, a bit disorganized.
Yeah.
They're good people, and then if I do jujitsu, right? And so I can roll with people and kind of see how relaxed are they, how aware are they of where their body is in their stress response.
Uh-huh.
And people who meditate are not the most relaxed people that I meet. So I'm like,
Oh,
something's wrong here. Like some things I tend to think, I wonder how much of it is it's not embodied. They're not, yeah, it's very hard to put into words, but it's something that I experience and I can observe. And so that's why eyes open. To me, I'll still shut my eyes sometimes, but as a general rule, my eyes are open.
Interesting.
when I'm feeling what's happening in the body.
Yeah. Very fascinating. I think I'm wondering if this is like another dimension to accessing, this kind of flow core state, different techniques. It's first time, I've heard physiology, Tony Robbins talks about, getting into your body and feeling it, but you're talking about like kind of working with it and rewiring it. Yeah, I know we have kind of limited time, and so kind of what are the resources that set you on this path, like particular books or podcasts, and how can people reach out to you and learn more about this the Rageheart and the philosophy behind it?
Mhm. Well, I'll do your first point on, Tony Robbins and getting into the body and all of that. Like, a big part of it is there's different techniques depending on what we've been through. It's gonna be harder or easier. Some people it can be very difficult. But I remember when I first started doing it, it's like if I look around and feel the ground and use these techniques to drop, I would say drop into my body, I could literally feel. It's like I didn't realize I was spending all my. This is going to sound like I'm such a hippie, but I don't know how else to put it. Like energetically, I'm all up in my head. And as I
uh,
started to say, feel the ground and look around, I literally felt something settle down. It's like I could feel this movement from all this stuff up in my head
uh,
down into the rest of my body, as
uh,
if I was dropping in or like landing, or if I had like again, this is not meant to be like a literal truth, just a way to describe it, but as if there was like a soul that, like a cloud that envelops the body,
uh,
beyond the physical, the aura, I think some people would call it. And the whole thing was concentrated up in my head. And then when I
uh,
started working with this, it's like I could literally feel this thing like settling down into my body. And I don't know if that's my aura or just a sense of like things just settling in. It's just a way to describe it.
yeah,
And with that came this sense of like the mind is just like, oh, it's gone. It comes back. It's not like it's gone forever.
yeah,
But now it's like if I just want to just drop in and get rid of the thoughts, it's so easy.
uh,
Something that was so difficult with meditation. Maybe I could do it while meditating, but it was very, very difficult the rest of the time. Like
yeah,
linking those two things together, the meditation, the rest of life was two separate compartments. Now it's all the same thing. And I can just drop into that state immediately. And I've got people who come through Rageheart, which is where I teach people about this now, which brings me to the resources. One guy, one of the first guys who signed up, he's like, man, this was harder than I expected.
uh,
But once it clicked, it silenced my mind like never before.
mm-hmm.
It's a very common thing where people are like, oh my God, oh shit, it's gone. It comes back, but it's more silent, more quiet, more relaxed. It's beautiful.
Uh,
And so as far as resources go, I mean, the best place would be to just go to Rageheart, like Braveheart, the movie with Mel Gibson, but Rage,
yeah,
because working with rage and aggression was a big part of my journey. So if people go to rageheart.co or just
uh,
type in Rageheart at Google, I think I'll be number one. You go to the website. There's some content on the homepage you can read about, and if it sounds interesting, sign up to the email list, and you can learn more about it.
yeah,
So
interesting. Yeah. And then yeah, it's quite interesting. It's the way you just like kind of you're working with the energy, and I'm sure the way you describe it makes it sound like you energetically feel lighter as opposed to heavier with all these thoughts and in your head, and uh fascinating. And so for all the audience out there, this quite interesting. All of John's resources will be in the links and show notes, and be sure to give him a like and follow. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
thanks, Christopher. Thanks for having me, mate. Cheers.